Good afternoon, everybody, and very much welcome here to the Aula of Stockholm School of Economics. We're very happy to sit here while the dusk falls outside our window and listen to the future. Not just any part of the future, but the future that the people will provide for us. We will talk a lot about how the youth are today. What's wrong with them? What's right with them? How many are they? Can we treat them as one whole group, or are they individuals? We'll see about that. To our help, we have lots of people, not only here on stage, but also in the audience. As you see over here, we'll have a Twitter arrangement going on. So there will be people here that are discussing this subject, putting up some interesting comments, or not so interesting. That's for you to judge. And for those of you who are doing that, you can see that we have an account and also hashtag #MKids. And you will find the login to the network on the back of your name tags, if you feel like logging into our network. We will approach this subject through quite a few different angles today. And I hope the tempo will be fairly quick. And even so, if we miss something during one part of the presentation, we'll have time to get back to it later. I just want to assure you that if you want to ask a question, please feel free to do so. And then I'd like to start with welcoming our first speaker, a man who's been working as a journalist for whole lots of years, and he's been studying not only young people, but also he has been writing about it in Wall Street Journal for a long time. Now he wrote a book, The Trophy Kids, and so I may welcome Ron Alsop. Please give him a warm hand. Welcome.
Well, good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here. This is my first visit to Stockholm, to Sweden, and so far I'm looking forward to seeing more of it, but I did take a walk yesterday and enjoyed what I saw. And I have to thank Peter and Judith for inviting me and for being so helpful in arranging my trip here from New York. And I guess what interested me when I heard from Judith about coming to this event that you were putting on was that I received some invitations from other European countries like Scotland and England to speak, but you were the first non-English speaking country to want me to talk about this. But it also wasn't a total surprise, because when I was researching my book, I interviewed some people at Ericsson for another article I was writing on executive education. And when I told them I was writing this book on the millennial generation, they said, "Oh yes, we know all about curling." And I didn't know what curling meant, but I knew it was a sport, but I didn't know what it meant in terms of parenting in Sweden. So I realized that maybe there was a lot to share with you here in Sweden about what I wrote about, focusing mostly on America. So anyway, my book grew out of an article I actually wrote for the Wall Street Journal about, I guess it was now about 3 years ago. And what prompted me to write the book was, as I wrote about business education and visited a lot of business schools, I kept hearing more and more about millennials. And in America, the general starting age for an MBA program is around 24, 25 years old. And so the MBA programs were starting to see their very first millennials, and they were quite taken aback by this new generation of students. So I actually wasn't that familiar with millennials and the whole idea of that generation when I kept hearing about it from school. So I started investigating, and I wrote a column for the Wall Street Journal about millennials reaching MBA age. And I said, here come the millennials, meaning here come the millennials to business schools. And I got such an outpouring of response from readers to my column in terms of emails and phone calls from parents, millennials, recruiters, and educators, that I decided there was an awful lot more here to explore than what I had done in my newspaper column. So that's how the book idea originated, and then I wrote a book proposal and sold it to John Wiley, and my book came out about a year ago. And since then, it sparked quite a lot of interest among both companies and universities. So if you don't know what the millennial generation is, this is sort of a summary of the main characteristics of this generation. And again, I want to say from the beginning that while I did talk to some companies in other countries, my book is very much U.S. focused. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about will be from an American perspective, as well as keep in mind that when I say some of these attributes, that it doesn't mean every millennial fits them. It just means that as a group, a lot of these characteristics fit this generation. So these are their birth years, and probably you don't know what I mean by trophies for everyone, but that's where the title of my book comes from. But in America, there was a tendency in the 80s, 90s, and today to give everybody a trophy. In other words, in baseball, which is a popular American sport, if you come and show up for the game but you sit on the bench the whole season, you get the same trophy as the guy who hits the home run. So it became very common for this generation to get an awful lot of praise and positive feedback even when they didn't really excel at something. So that was where my title came from for my book. And because of that, because of these trophies, they do tend to have very high self-esteem, which is not a bad thing, but it can be excessive at times, which it is for this generation. Technology is their strength, and these are their career priorities. One of their most appealing attributes, I think, is their civic-mindedness, that almost every millennial I interviewed for my book said something about wanting to make the world a better place, either through their job or through their personal lives. And then finally, the helicopter parents, as we call them in America, or curling, as I guess they're referred to here, is a very big part of why the millennials are the way they are. Now, as I said, I tried to look at the global nature of millennials, which was a little difficult, but I did talk to companies such as L'Oreal and a few others who were multinationals not based in America. And there were some studies done by companies like PricewaterhouseCoopers comparing the generation across some different countries. And I suppose, as I say here, the most common traits are their technology skills, strong drive to succeed, this positive desire to do good for the world, a tendency to hop from job to job, that was when the economy was better, and the close parental ties. This quote from the head of recruiting at L'Oreal in Paris, "I tell managers the good news is this generation won't hate you," comes from the fact that they are so close to their parents that he's finding that they do like older adults, as opposed to Generation X, the preceding generation, which tended to be more cynical and a bit distrustful of authority figures. One person pointed out to me and that they find that Asian millennials have a stronger work ethic than perhaps millennials in America or Europe, which could be an issue for this generation, which puts a lot of value in work-life balance, whereas they're finding that young people coming from India or China are less concerned about their personal lives and are willing to put in long hours at work. Now, we did a survey at the Wall Street Journal of corporate recruiters, and we asked them what their perception of millennials are, and these are some of the comments we got back from recruiters. I would say probably at least 2/3 of the comments tended to be on the negative side. And I'll explore some of these issues as I talk, but I think the main issue with recruiters is that this generation has a sense of entitlement. They have really great expectations of what they're going to find when they get to the workplace that are sometimes quite unrealistic.